that much. In all, the United States pours nearly $4 billion worth of military, financial, and economic assistance into Indochina in an effort to avoid a French and a free world defeat. Some of the aid, such as heavy trucks and cement for roads, is of questionable value. It is hoped that this aid will enable the French to stem the communist tide. General Jean de Lettre de Tassigny, a brilliant officer, arrives to rebuild the morale of the dispirited colonial army. In addition to Vietnamese recruits, de Lettre's force of 170,000 includes tough professional soldiers from the Foreign Legion and volunteers from all parts of the French Empire. De Lettre employs American aircraft on a massive scale and kills 6,000 Viet Minh in a pitched battle east of Hanoi. In the face of growing French air power, the Viet Minh soon becomes expert at camouflage. Military aid from Red China has begun to reach the Viet Minh. To increase the flow of supplies, better roads are needed. Men and women work with their hands. Hands are not as good as bulldozers, but enough of them do the job. General Raoul Salan, later to head the secret army in Algeria, succeeds the ailing General de Lettre. Bao Dai is back as chief of a French-sponsored government in Saigon. But the French, still unwilling to grant the Vietnamese real independence, lack popular support. At his northern headquarters, General Vo Nguyen Yap, the tough commander of the Viet Minh Army, prepares his strategy. Yap now figures he has enough strength for a frontal assault, but he must move carefully. He plans to draw the French into a trap. In Saigon, the new National Assembly meets. Its members and Bao Dai's cabinet are mostly French-weaned property owners and professional men with little political experience. There are no Northerners represented among the delegates and no figure like Ho Chi Minh to command respect and provide strong, united leadership.
Business has been going great. We've grown so much, so fast. Honestly, I don't know.
By the fall of 1953, the French have 500,000 men in Indochina, a 2-to-1 numerical superiority over the Viet Minh. But they're still losing heavily in jungle combat. The stage is set for a showdown. It comes when the French launch an airborne attack against an obscure northern village named Dien Bien Phu. Its chief military asset is an airstrip built by the Japanese in World War II. In a shallow valley near the Laotian border, Dien Bien Phu has been chosen as an objective for both political and military reasons. Viet Minh units have begun to move west across the border into neighboring Laos. Their route takes them along one of the few roads linking the two countries, a road that passes through Dien Bien Phu. General Henri Navarre, who has replaced Salan as French military commander, feels that creating an impregnable strong point at Dien Bien Phu will stall the Red Drive into Laos. The entire operation is to be supplied from the air. To French military commanders who cling to their concept of defensive forts, Dien Bien Phu will become the greatest fort of all. 3,000 tons of barbed wire are strung, triple the normal quota for such a defensive position. Units are provided with 9 days of rations, 8 days of ammunition, and such special aids in modern warfare as flamethrowers and nighttime infrared sights called sniper.
I like how they use for defensive in war, they use the same thing we keep cattle out with, right? That's genius. Absolutely genius. Sorry the cough in your face, guys. Oh, got a bit of a cold along with being a pot smoker. Speaking of which.
For scopes. The Dien Bien Phu garrison is a polyglot force of 12,000 foreign legionnaires, Moroccans, Algerians, and Vietnamese, commanded by a colorful cavalry colonel named Christian de Castres. With all he has in men and supplies, says General Navarre, there is a 100% chance of crushing the Viet Minh. In a mountain factory using a primitive water wheel for motive power, the Viet Minh works to increase its arsenal. Some weapons have been captured intact, some must be repaired, others are manufactured from scratch with homemade equipment. The Viet Minh workers include conscripts, but many are indoctrinated and zealous partisans of the communist cause. The bulk of Viet Minh supplies now comes from communist China. They're carried across the border 200 miles northeast by a force of 75,000 coolies. At Dien Bien Phu, the job of preparing the unique fortress is almost complete. Despite its modern equipment, there's something medieval about it, something anachronistic. The big planes pour in on the refurbished Japanese airstrip, bringing flamethrowers, mortars, artillery, and even tanks. But what is out of focus is the thinking behind it all. CBS News correspondent David Schomburn was there.
We stood in Dien Bien Phu. I'll never forget it. It was a little muddy field, and it was shaped something like this. It was in the hollow of my palm here, and all around us were mountain crests, high ridges. The French were located down here in the bowl. They called it La Cuvette, which was a bowl. And I remember some of the correspondents saying to the French general at the time, "But General, what happens if the enemy ever gets up onto the ridge? He's going to be shooting fish in a barrel." And the general looked at that and said, "Oh, yes, but you see, these Vietnamese, these Annamites, they're not very good with artillery like we Europeans are. They don't have any heavy stuff, and we think it's unlikely that the Chinese will give them heavy stuff." That was the gamble they took. It was unlikely that the Chinese would furnish the Viet Minh communists, whom the Chinese were backing.
The general has made a tragic miscalculation. Artillery, including American guns captured by the Chinese Reds, is furnished the Viet Minh in quantity. Painfully pushed and pulled up mountain trails, these guns will provide the key.
I love it when we furnish the freaking, when we give people weapons. Like, they got the weapons from the Americans that, you know, lost it or left it behind, or we like making weapons so much that we don't care who has them. And it is a fantastic thing to be an American and just leave weapons all over the planet so other people can pick them up and start using them, right? I mean,
Key to victory. The French will be thoroughly outgunned. The Viet Minh has maneuvered its artillery into position as adroitly as if it were dealing with light machine guns. Soldiers work side by side with coolies to complete the buildup. The death knell of colonialism in Asia will be sounded in the terrible battle about to take place at Dien Bien Phu. Yap surrounds the French with 4 divisions. March 13th, 1954. The French are surprised, psychologically and physically stunned. Within hours, the Viet Minh captures the first of 8 strong points de Castro has romantically named for former girlfriends. The French reply with their own artillery, but it is not nearly so effective. French planes drop napalm bombs, liquid fire. But it is apparent that Dien Bien Phu needs reinforcements. Reports David Schomburn.
I remember watching French and Vietnamese paratroopers volunteering to jump into Dien Bien Phu, even in the last days of the war when they knew that it was suicide. They had more volunteers than they had planes to carry them. Rarely in history can one witness such a magnificent and totally absurd sacrifice of human life and noble courage as at Dien Bien Phu.
More than ever now, the French depend on their planes, but heavy Viet Minh anti-aircraft fire, also unexpected, cripples French air support. The Dien Bien Phu airstrip is riddled with shells. Planes can no longer land there. Helicopters must be brought in to evacuate the wounded. They are carried to the airfield from a nearby field hospital and loaded, often under fire. French nurses perform heroically. One of them, Geneviève de Galard, will gain undying fame in her country as the Angel of Dien Bien Phu. In France, the battle is being called the Verdun of Vietnam. The French have trouble spotting the Viet Minh guns cleverly hidden in the hills. As the unequal duel continues and communist fire predominates, the French artillery commander is driven to suicide.
Should have had him on the whole time, my bad. My goodness.
I don't know how he knows.
Oh, puppies know. Puppies are smart. God, I miss my clever little fucker.
French tanks cannot stop the Viet Minh from closing in through a maze of trenches. Enemy shock troops are dug in as close as 10 yards from the French lines. Despite heavy losses, they overrun the French positions one by one. The siege of Dien Bien Phu lasts 55 days. On May 7th, the Viet Minh starts its final assault. At French military headquarters in Hanoi, David Schomburn.
I was in the dugout at Hanoi at Supreme Headquarters with General René Cagnier, who was calling Dien Bien Phu. Every one of the little citadel positions had been captured by then. The radio communications were growing fainter, and we could hear the noise of communist guns. We could even hear the screaming of the wounded on that radio communication, until finally we heard the voice of the Castro saying, "My general, they're coming in now. All is over. I must cut off." The radio went dead. We heard no more from Dien Bien Phu. It was the end of the garrison. It was the end of the French adventure in Indochina. It was indeed the end of the French Empire.
French captives, almost 10,000, were subjected to brainwashing in a Viet Minh prison camp. Colonel de Castro, now a general in defeat, is one of them. Communist political officers hand down the line as the prisoners listen abjectly. 1,500 of their comrades at Dien Bien Phu are dead, and 4,000 have been wounded. More will die in Viet Minh captivity. The victory at Dien Bien Phu gives the Viet Minh bargaining power at a peace conference in Geneva.
I'm with you there. Fuck Macron. I mean, this has just definitely been fuck France and America big time here on this good propaganda little flick. But I think you're going to like what we have next. World War II spy training film. The World War II spy training film. I don't think we've watched that yet.
They get all of Vietnam north of the 17th parallel, with Hanoi their capital. French troops leave Hanoi forever, but many of them are headed for...
Hell, that's a good intellectual. I think you'll like this for a policy. You know, we've been talking about reparations as policy, policies and as a way to, split the left or whatever. And instead of like looking at actual reparations to American black people, why don't we talk about the policies of like stopping African countries paying European countries for like quitting fucking slavery or taking their land back or whatever? Like Mali still pays France freaking huge amounts of money. Isn't it like Haiti or the Dominican Republic pays France a huge amount of money? America gets money, like England gets money from Somalia or Sudan or some shit. Like all these countries, yeah, World War II spy training film coming up. But all these countries are getting money from fucking African countries for like stopping like not giving them slaves anymore, or like them taking their minerals back and shit. Like that's like the reverse reparations need to happen to the African nations, countries that are still Africa. We are stealing from Africa still. So before we start paying people whose families were slaves 400 years ago, which I have no problem with. I think definitely could be a thing. First and foremost, we need to stop stealing from African countries currently. That being France, England, Spain, America. Any of those countries that are stealing from Africa right now need to fucking stop it. That needs to be our reparations policy instantly. Then, when we stop actually fucking over the continent of Africa, can we maybe start talking about reparations to actual black people in America? After we stop fucking over black people in the entire planet. That would be great. Stealing from African and island countries is still an American pastime that needs to stop ASAP.
For another long, bloody war in Algeria. As the last French soldiers cross the bridge leading from Hanoi, Viet Minh guards take over. Communism has won a far-reaching victory in Asia. Refugees, there will ultimately be 1 million of them, head for the south below the line drawn at Geneva. These are the Vietnamese who do not choose to live under communism. The old and the young, they stream along the roads and trails on foot. Some go by sea in small boats, while others come down the coast to Saigon by ship. Today, many of these refugees are leaders in the continuing fight to preserve their freedom by saving South Vietnam from communism, a strikingly similar kind of war in which the United States is deeply committed. The story of next week's episode in a moment. And now a message from your host, the Prudential Insurance Company of America. Next week at this time, the Prudential will present a story of espionage, never before told on television, of the most massive spying effort ever directed against a single country, West Germany. These are actual Red spies at work, filmed secretly by West German security forces. Next week, this story. This is Walter Cronkite reporting for the 20th century.
It wasn't that special. Boy, we fucked up that country, huh? Fucked it up royally.
This picture you're about to see.
Oh, I love these fucking movies. Alright, well, hopefully we can get some joiners. It's just me and you at the moment. But that's cool. Looks like there's somebody on YouTube too. So, trying to watch all the chats. It's kind of bouncing my head around. But I have not actually watched this all the way through. And I'm pretty sure I've not watched it with any of you. Which means it's new to me and new to you. This is a new film for us, guys. We've never watched it, so it's new to us, right? World War II spy and training film, undercover. Circa 1944. 1944. This is some new shit to us, huh?
Is the first cinematic study of the preparation, arrival, and establishment of permanent cover for secret agents. We are fortunate in having with us for this occasion Colonel Robinson, Chief of Schools and Training. Colonel, before we start the picture, perhaps you wouldn't mind saying a few words.
A few words.
All right, Lieutenant. I will make this short because I know that you are all just as anxious to see this movie as I am. I wish it were possible to meet all of you men personally. But since it isn't, I'll take this opportunity to say hello and to tell you that I'm glad you're with us. Many of you are going to desks in this country or to assignments in neutral countries where you may not be faced with the problems portrayed in this film. But if this brings you just a little closer to those men who are going into the hottest spots, I hope it will help you to do a better job. This picture does not presume to give you all of the answers, of course. I do think, however, that it will provide a foundation on which to do your own building. For after all, no war service provides a greater scope for individual initiative and imagination than this job for which you have volunteered. All right, Lieutenant, take it away.
Thank you, Colonel. Okay, Al, let it go.
Let it go. Okay, there is something special about a World War II spy training film where the intro of the film is an intro of a film. where the intro of the film is people sitting down to watch the film. Oh my goodness, that is so funny. Oh, we lost a follower from last night? Somebody came on and unfollowed me from last night tonight? That's sad. Back to 140, guys. But that's cool. You know, we're just a chill group at night. And tonight is black and white propaganda, and it started out perfectly. This is beautiful. I'm excited. Let's smoke a bowl and watch some good shit, huh? Undercover. For branch of the schools of training.
Yes, this is an undercover agent. At least the popular conception of how such a fellow looks and behaves. He is inconspicuous. He blends with his environment. He is, in short, the ideal agent, from the enemy's point of view. He's just the kind of agent the enemy is waiting for with open arms. And for that reason, just the kind of agent you aren't going to be.
Student Al?
Right.
Seems I made a good impression at the schools. Nice work.
Thank you, sir.
Pull up a chair. Cigarette?
Thanks.
I think you were told something about your assignment before you went to eat, weren't you, Al?
Yes, to obtain intelligence on aviation production and the position of vital targets in the capital district of enemy area.
Correct. You have to set up an intelligence organization which will gather information for an SO operation. Are you set on your cover?
Not definitely. I've narrowed it down to two, either a government inspector or a chief mechanic.
Government inspector. Better for a native agent than a planted one. And these days, when enemy area is using every available man under 50 in the Army, people might wonder what special pull you had. Anything that makes people ask questions, even innocent ones, is bad cover.
Then you think the mechanic's the better bet?
If you're a good mechanic. You know nothing will blow you quicker than not knowing your job.
Well, I put in 7 years with General Motors. And with a little brushing up, I think I'd be all right.
Mechanic in an airplane plant near the capital. That might be the ticket. We know they need good mechanics so badly now that it might not take you too long to establish good permanent cover.
Now, if I could get a job on the night shift. I'd have plenty of time to devote to my hobby during the day.
Good. That's the way you're thinking. Now go to work. Background's familiar to you. You'll be able to get the latest material at the farm.
No.
Most recent laws and local restrictions, even the latest slang our intelligence has picked up.
Fine. I've already made up a list of things to check off.
Good. If there's anything you don't get that you think you need, doors are always open. By the way, I'll get right to work on those financial details for you. Hope to have that insurance for your family pushed through before you leave.
That's very kind of you.
No, it's not kind. It's my job to do everything I can to help you think about nothing but your job.
Well, I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Right.
It's not even that fast at 5:15. Oh.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Student Charles. Lawyer, eh? Pretty good cover.
Thank you. Sit down. I'm going over your evaluation from the schools.
Oh, that stuff. I spent enough time on the other side to know my way around.
That's what you told him at E after they took your pants off at the Thursday night round table.
If you set me down in a real spot, it'll be another story.
We're considering you for a real spot. We're trying to establish a man in one of enemy area's chief seaports to observe the naval concentration there and to find out whether or not there's a submarine base in that vicinity. Now, you could do it if you went in with the right attitude.
Look, if you think I've got the ability, don't worry about my attitude. Which port is it?
El Porto.
El Porto, my old stamping grounds. I could draw that coast with my eyes closed.
Well, this job calls for you going in with your eyes open. Now, you know the locale, but that isn't enough to get by. Now, think it over and come back when you're ready to talk cover.
I'm ready now. El Porto, let me see. I've got it. A fishing boat skipper. I've raced around there enough to know the channels by heart.
Fishing has possibilities. And we have a lot of contacts with fishermen around there, you know, who could probably take care of you.
Then it's all set.
No, it's just something to consider now. If it doesn't hurt your feelings, we'd like to bust you from skipper to an ordinary seaman. You know, every skipper is known to the shore patrol there, but if you were just a member of the crew, like the thousands of in every seaport, you might get by with it.
Get by with it. I talk the language like a native. I know those waters better than most natives. How can I miss?
Very easily. By going on like you've been going, by knowing all the answers before you even think of the questions. Now, we'll give you all the dope you require about this El Porto area, but just don't read it. Absorb it.
Okay, if you want to waste time. But I tell you, I know El Porto like a book.
Perhaps the enemy has added a couple of chapters since you've left.
Aye, aye, sir.
Couple chapters since you left. He maybe added a couple chapters. Oh boy. Impulse are confident, overconfident, inclined to erratic behavior, but has a high degree of intelligence, showing motivation for job and excellent natural cover. Oh, why are you on y'all? Boy, I don't like to read. It's really hard and frustrating. Boy, oh boy. I got an idea. I'll pick up my phone and text my bitch. Yeah, my bitch.
So you're all set on your story, eh?
Well, I'd like to try it out on you.
All right. Shoot. Let's see how closely it conforms to your own life. And don't forget, I'll be watching for errors as closely as an enemy police officer.
Here it is. My name is Albert Horn. Both my parents were born in enemy area and had lived in Detroit for 5 years when I was born there in 1903. I was in Detroit until 1913 when my mother died. And I was sent back to live with my aunt and uncle in the capital of enemy area. I graduated from the gymnasium in 1920 and went to work in my uncle's bicycle shop. In 1924, I went back to Detroit and worked as an apprentice in the Ford plant. In 1926, I transferred to General Motors, where I worked as a machinist until 1931. From 1931, I was on relief until 1936, when I went back to my old job at General Motors.
Who talks like this?
Just before my home country went into the war, I felt it was my duty to return there and serve in any way.
Man, I try to get years right of places I've lived, but I can't get it like this. Who talks like this? From 04 to from da da da, and then the next 3 years, like, it sounds like a story if you fucking know it like that.
I could. Arriving here on the U.S. tourist passport, I volunteered with the engineers. And then, after a year and 3 months in the Army, I'm discharged with a bad back.
Ever had a bad back?
No, but I thought I could fake it.
Never say anything you can't prove. Why not make it sciatica? That's one ailment the best doctor in the world can't prove you haven't got.
Okay, sciatica. I convalesced for a short time in the country at a friend's house.
That will be the farmhouse you're taken to by the reception committee.
And then when I'm directed to find employment in an aircraft factory, because of my technical experience, I come to the capital and make arrangements for an interview with the superintendent of the Falcon plant.
Sounds all right, Al. That story ought to stand up.
It's a little glib, perhaps, but isn't bad. Now, you talk a good fisherman. Now you've got to learn to be a good fisherman. The next thing on your agenda is a couple of weeks with a commercial fisherman on the Grand Banks.
Won't I stink enough of fish on the other side without having to get a 2-week start?
Well, it isn't a question of stinking like a fisherman, although that's important, too. You've got to know the ropes. Literally, I mean.
But I'm a fisherman from way back. Why, I landed the biggest sailfish ever caught in Mexican waters back in '33. 189 pounds. You can look it up in the record book.
I'd rather read the records in your hands. Let me see your palms. Oh, you've got good calluses. I think a couple of weeks of salt water and hard work will really get you in shape.
But I've got to have some relaxation. After all, I'm not going abroad for my health. And it's my neck.
Now, that's where you're wrong. Once you join our team, it isn't a question of your own neck anymore. Those brains of yours are a vital connection point in our system of intelligence. When one fuse is blown, the lights go out all over the house. So, we're just as interested in safeguarding that neck of yours as you are.
Keep in on that goddamn line, too! Come on, get it.
Whether you're checked before you leave or on the other side, the principle is always the same. The most unimportant detail may be the most important. When you get your hair cut, be sure it's enemy area style. The hands must look as if they've done the work. Every scar must conform with your cover story. Clothes may not necessarily make the agent, but they surely break the agent if they aren't checked and rechecked.
That's an enemy area cut, all right, but it's too expensive for a mechanic. Well, that's the type of coat you would wear, but there aren't any left.
That's right. The Army got all the heavy coats in the last winter drive.
How about that one?
I think this raincoat would be better.
Every piece of clothing is examined for the right label,
my God!
the right laundry marks, the proper amount of wear and tear. Every toilet article examined minutely.
Guarantee they don't do this shit anymore.
They use straight razors over there now because of the shortage of blades.
They don't do this.
Even if your papers have been forged by experts from the most recent enemy area documents, proof them yourselves.
Just a minute. This Army discharge reads Alfred Horn. Everything else is Albert Horn.
Nice eye, Al. Just want to see if you're on the ball. You don't have to worry about the rest of those papers. Even the texture and watermarks have been duplicated.
Just as important as your official papers, and more subtle to
Oh
select,
my God,
are your casual effects, the odds and ends you happen to have with you that may be more convincing to the enemy area police than your identification and travel permit. The stickers on your suitcase, a handful of cigarettes, a train stub, an old address book, a letter addressed to you as a private in the Army from a girl in the town you're going to, and a snapshot of her with you in an enemy area uniform. Details, each one a thread woven into the pattern of your cover story. How many cases of blown cover you studied were due to neglect of some insignificant detail of cover that didn't seem worth checking a second time?
I've got 6 pence, jolly 6 pence. I've got 6 pence to last me all my life. I've got 2 pence to spend, and 2 pence to lend, and 2 pence to take home.
This is German Agent X. He landed in Canada from a submarine 2 days ago. So far, he's doing all right for himself. His landlady believes he's a war worker from out west in British Columbia. This afternoon, his forged papers and his convincing line
He looks like a
got him a
jackass.
job in an aluminum plant.
Fuck that guy.
No wonder he feels like joining in the singing.
Of the silvery moon, happy is the day when we line up for our pay as we go rolling, rolling home.
Say, that's not bad. Come on over and join us, will you?
Thanks. Don't mind if I do.
I got 4 pence, jolly 4 pence. I got 4 pence to last me all my life. I've got 2 pence to spend and 2 pence to lend, and no pence to send home to my wife, a poor wife. No cares.
That's very close.
Well, I'll have another beer.
Thanks, but it's getting late. I better be going.
Oh, don't be a killjoy. We're just beginning to wet our whistles.
I'd like to have another drink with you boys. Well, I gotta be on the job at the crack of dawn. Good night, fellas.
Oh, we'll see you again.
So long. What's the damage?
That'll be $1.80, sir.
That's easy.
Damn.
Thanks. Come again.
Right on.
Hey, will you look at this?
What do you got there, Peg?
One of those old bills the government called in before the war.
Gee, I haven't seen one of these big fellas in a long time. Now, where the devil do you suppose he got this?
Yes, Agent X was doing all right with himself until he passed an obsolete bill, 1/3 larger than the present issue. Months of preparation were nullified by insufficient attention to what seemed like an insignificant detail.
Are we admitting we were trying to fucking spy on Canada in the 1930s? We were trying to spy on Canada? What the fuck? Why the fuck would we spy on Canada? Oh.
Carelessness, conspicuousness, blown cover. That's the fatal triple play that put
German
out of the game.
A German in Canada. Still, why the fuck would Germans spy in Canada? Who the fuck would spy in Canada?
Agent Y was a smooth operator, a Spanish phalangist who had turned in a good job for the Nazis in Mexico before moving on to Los Angeles to incite Mexican youths against other Americans and recruit the keenest of them into an espionage organization. He has not been in Los Angeles long, but long enough to win friends and influence zoot suiters.
Come on, kids. I got paid today. Have another shot. Brother, this tequila is murder. What the hell? The army's getting you next week anyway. What have you got to lose? Just a stomach, that's all. Oye, muchacho. Ándale, another round.
Another round? Are you kidding? You know what time it is? A las 12, the bar is closed.
Here's a buck for yourself. Maybe that'll help keep the bar open for one more round.
So, hey, you're really a killer, aren't you?
Killer? You're calling me a killer.
Killer. Trying to buy me off for a lousy buck. And the state commission fines me $500 for selling after hours.
Oh, I see. Killer. That's an expression you use, eh?
Say, how long you been in L.A.?
Oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
Where'd you live before that, Juanito?
San Bernardino. Come on, let's get out.
What's the nickname for San Bernardino?
What is this, third degree? Since when do customers have to answer questions by stupid waiters? Come on, muchacho.
Everyone who lives there knows the nickname of San Bernardino, brother. San Bernardino. And anybody that never heard of a killer diller.
The waiter was anti-phalangist, an anti-Nazi. From that moment on, he kept his eyes on Senior Y. He began to notice other idiomatic slips. When his suspicions were passed over to the authorities, they were quickly confirmed. And the enemy lost a clever agent, but not quite clever enough to remember that even details of slang are a necessary part of his cover equipment.
What firm did you say you worked for in Copenhagen?
Helsingfors Dairy Company.
And what is your exact position with this company?
I'm the assistant foreign branch manager in Germany.
British Agent Z has made repeated trips to Germany under convincing commercial cover. Even when he was picked up for making a somewhat suspicious call to Copenhagen, his story was unshaken. And the way he was presenting it was even beginning to influence the expert interrogators of the SS.
Christian Dairies Incorporated.
And what is the address of this company in Copenhagen?
Gentlemen, I'd be very glad to answer your questions all day. But I have a good many business details to complete before leaving your city, and I'm quite sure you have many more important things to do.
One moment, please. We are not interested in persecuting Danes. Security police is not an organization of persecution. It is an organization that protects you against the enemies of the state. You are guilty, you will not escape us. If you are, who you say you are, you have nothing to fear from us.
Then I have your permission to leave?
Yes, you may go.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Captain. You see, hair grease. If my memory is correct, there has been no hair grease on the continent since the end of 1940.
This is preposterous. Quiet. Have a sample of this hair grease. Analyzed immediately. He will be kept in solitary confinement, pending the report from the laboratory.
Come along.
So you have not been in England since 1938, eh? Then how do you account for the fact that this hair grease is a British product which has been applied with
a first-rate cover story, and an excellent man. destroyed by a few drops of hairdressing, thoughtlessly rubbed into his hair during his last trip to England a few days before. Months of training, final weeks of thorough briefing, and our agents are ready for the second leg of their journey, on to base country. Charles in a heavy bomber under temporary military cover, while Al crosses as a private on a common transport. In a fashionable apartment in a base country capital, Al locates his desk.
You seem pretty well prepared on the whole. We'll have a final briefing as soon as you lose your sea legs.
Thank you.
We picked up some of the latest changes in enemy area regulations that may alter your documentation a little.
I wish they'd quit making new regulations every day. I'd sleep better.
Well, from their point of view, they think they're being very clever. They keep changing the rules every 5 minutes. A newcomer can't stay hidden very long, theoretically. But we found that by keeping our eyes open and using our heads, we can beat that game. For instance, don't go into a strange bar and order the first thing that pops into your head. Your favorite poison may be on the verboten list that day. Look around and see what the others are drinking. Then if you're stuck, appear undecided so long that the waiter will suggest something for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember, this is no suicide mission. It's a 24-hour-a-day job with the odds all in your favor. And to make sure of that, I always tell my men to take out life insurance.
I think that's been taken care of back in the...
No, I mean your own personal life insurance. By leaving open some avenue of escape, in case things get too hot for you. Study your means of exfiltration just as carefully as infiltration. I've known men who were expert drivers in first, second, and high, but who never knew how to go into reverse.
Don't worry. I'm not the hero type.
Good.
But just how do you go about leaving this avenue of escape?
Well, in the first place, have a cover story ready for that emergency exit. As soon as possible, hide a cache of money somewhere. And when you start building your organization, keep contacts whose only function is to help your getaway.
In other words, when I buy this ticket to enemy area, you want me to make sure it's a round-trip ticket.
In another base country,
No
Charles
shit,
is concentrating
Sherlock.
on
Jesus.
last-minute details of his infiltration.
Guy
into
asked the most
enemy
fucking obvious shit. What a fucking idiot.
What's your name?
Sanford.
Sanford.
Oh, we're getting to the best part, supposedly. The most replayed part. The way this is all setting up is that this guy's going to get caught and the other guy's supposed to be smooth. But I feel like the other asshole's going to get caught. And this guy... No, they're both going to get caught, aren't they? I don't know. It's propaganda. It's not really a training film. But it's funny, I guess. I should have put this under, like, documentaries tonight.
It's a good thing I'm just your base country desk, not an enemy area plain clothing. From now on, your name's Charles Santos. The next time you give your right name, you may find your interrogator just a little less cooperative.
Christ, this is a hell of a way.
Listen, there's less chance of having your sleep interrupted later on. You get to know your new name better than your old.
Oh, it's practically second nature with me now. It's just that
Tomorrow, you'd better concentrate on nothing but that name. Drink it. Eat it. Walk around with it until you know it well enough to come up with it out of a sound sleep.
Okay.
Good night, Charles Santos.
Now, there are 3 or 4 different ways we can send agents into enemy area. They can go overland, either overtly, under good legal cover, or covertly, sneaking across the border with the help of the underground. An agent traveling overtly would have to pass as a national from a neutral country, under some sort of commercial cover. When you're crossing a border this way, you should not only act as if you have nothing to hide, you should actually have nothing to hide. Don't bring compromising materials or messages through these controls. They can be sent to you more safely by other methods once you are established in enemy area. If you're crossing the border covertly, as thousands are doing in Europe these days, don't carry a map with you. It's unhealthy. Unless you carry it in your own head. Memorize the principal landmarks and basic topography of the area you're entering, until you can make your own model of the country on the sand table. If a guide is necessary, be sure you check his reliability. Members of the underground are your best bet. Professionals who charge you exorbitant prices are loyal to only one cause, money. The enemy may be just as bright as yours. Borders breed double agents. who charge you $1,000 to lead you over the border. And being eminently fair, charge the enemy an equal amount to lead them to you.
Oh, man. This is hilarious.
You're worried about doubling back on yourself. Use your ingenuity in fashioning an impromptu chart of your course, camouflaged as harmless doodling. After you've crossed the frontier, don't get overconfident about those border controls. You're in a 24-hour-a-day battle of wits. The enemy has secret weapons of his own. Keep moving across country by a circuitous route. For the border isn't a black thread across the map. It's a strip at least 15 miles wide, infested with collaborationists, counter-espionage agents, and special police. Human landmines hidden among the native population to blast your cover.
Blast your cover.
Finally,
bah, bah, bah.
when you reach a town far enough inland, don't enter it from the border side. Circle around it and enter it from the other side, as if you were coming from the interior.
Jesus.
But as I understood it, that was going in by plane.
Yes. In your case, it will be safer and faster to drop you by parachute. We like our men to have a good working knowledge of other methods of penetration.
How about these plane landings I've heard of?
Naturally, when we have a field that we can land on safely without being discovered, it's more efficient. We can pick up an outgoing agent at the same time, for instance. The only place we can land on safely now is guerrilla territory.
How low is this plane going to be when I jump?
Maybe it'd be a good idea for you to sit down with a pilot who's going to fly you in. He'll give you the dope on just how it's going to be.
And another thing, we never set a date until we're damn sure we found the right dropping point. Like this one we picked out for you, for instance. It's just about perfect. It's a level grassy space large enough to allow for adverse wind conditions. And it's far enough removed from trees and telegraph wires so that daylight won't find you hanging out there like an ornament on a Christmas tree. It's 15 miles to the nearest anti-aircraft setup, and my buddies will create a little diversion over there to keep our minds off us until we've set you down. There's a river running closely that I can follow practically all the way in, and a couple of little lakes on the other side that make pretty good landmarks to help me spot the place in the moonlight. About a mile away from the dropping point, there's a safe house, owned by a peasant working with us. The liaison chief will be there waiting for you.
Everything's on schedule. How soon will they be here? 33 minutes. Take the radio out and bury it, Mary.
The container being dropped with Al is bulky evidence of Al's arrival, unless it can be buried deep enough and fast enough. Or empty containers, buried instantly, tell no tales.
Bury it instantly, not buried. Even the fucking,
Right on time.
Run time, not right on time. It's right on time, not rip time. Closed caption's not doing very good on this one. Fucking it all up.
Any broken bones?
No, I think I made it all in one piece. Our friend's farm is up the hill there, just about a mile.
Yeah.
I'll show you the way. What about my gear?
Don't worry, the boys will take care of it.
Fine, let's go.
While Al enjoys a much-needed rest, Charles employs another method of infiltration in reaching enemy area coast.
You gotta know all those means of
A
penetration.
neutral fishing schooner and itinerant fishermen, both familiar sights to this waterfront town, provide the most natural sort of cover for Charles' arrival. Can you pick him out? No? I'm afraid the enemy area shore patrol could. What's that stroke of yours, Charles? Look around at the other. Short, jerky strokes. Not the most graceful in the world, but better adapted to choppy surfs and heavy boats. Now look at yours. Long, sweeping strokes. Where do you think you are, Charlie? Back in the dear old Harvard shell? Yes, just a detail. But the kind of detail the enemy shore patrol is watching for.
Jesus, annoying, boring. Christ, you people.
Wait a minute there, Charles. How about that knot? Don't tell me you've forgotten the fishermen here have their own particular method of tying up a boat. Keep your eyes open and your mind open, Charles. Otherwise, you're liable to tie that knot around your own neck. As soon as curfew is lifted, Al hits the road to the nearest railway terminal. Ask him where he's coming from, and he'd say...
From the farm where I was convalescing after I was evacuated from the bomb city of Holbert.
And where was he going?
To Enemy Town to visit my fiancée and try to get a part-time job until I'm strong enough to get into a war plant.
Enemy Town, Friendly Town. God damn, they're generic.
Oh boy, maybe I can get a hitch to the station.
Wait a minute, Al. What did they tell you about cars in enemy area? 9 out of 10, they're state officials. Just the boys who might ask embarrassing questions. Better hoof it, brother. It's better to find a hole in your shoe than a hole in your cover. That's right, whistle. Be as natural as you can. For just a second. What's that you're whistling? Wait till the sun shines, Nellie? That's better. A Viennese waltz. They weren't kidding when they told you at the schools that this was a 24-hour-a-day job. Even what you whistle has to conform to cover. So far, so good, Al. You're not taking the bus because the police are watching the buses pretty carefully these days. Instead, as soon as enemy area restrictions allow daylight travel, you've located the first rural station in the opposite direction from the dropping point.
Fucking loud.
Travel permit. Let's see your travel permit.
That's it, Al. Sit back and take this half control in stride. You've left all compromising material behind to be sent to you later at a previously arranged address. And you know your temporary cover story for this trip holds water because you tested it for leaks at the farmhouse last night.
What's your name?
Albert Horn.
Where are you coming from?
The farm near Holbert.
Farm, huh? You don't look like a farmer.
I'm not. I was evacuated after being bombed out of a hospital in Holbert.
Oh. Where are you headed?
Enemy Town?
Sorry to ask you so many questions, but an unidentified plane flew over the
Enemy
neighborhood
Town?
last night, and we can't take any chances. Why are you going to Enemy Town?
I can show you.
Smack that smile off his stupid fucking
Not
face.
My fiancée.
I wouldn't mind going to Enemy Town for that myself.
Oh, it's my patriotic duty.
Patriotic duty, huh? I wish all our patriotic duties could be so pleasant.
Jackass. Stupid encounter.
In Enemy
I hate
Town,
the smile.
halfway
The
between
smile
the
is not
dropping point and the
natural.
capital, Al heads for the address he was given by the liaison chief.
Mr. Durant?
Yes?
Someone told me you were looking for an assistant.
An assistant? I could use an assistant. How much experience have you had?
I was a mechanic in the Army, 2 years in the tank corps.
Good. I've been looking for a man with your kind of training.
Well, I'm your man.
Got your work clothes with you?
Right here in my bag.
Yeah, that was
Good.
some bullshit, huh?
Come on inside and I'll start you right to work.
Brown nose
Thank
and
you,
bullshit right there. Patriotic duty.
Over the noise of the
Giant
machines,
stupid smile on
Rand gives
his
Al the
face.
necessary instructions for the last leg of his journey to the capital.
No, not like that. You're throwing away too much. Nowadays, they take 4/5 of our catch. So we use this for chowder. The foreman sees you throwing this away, and they wonder where you were when he warned you about it 4 weeks ago.
Oh, I'll just tell him I was out of town that day for my old lady's funeral.
I can see you're a very brave man. If you don't mind my saying so, you're too spirited. Look at these fellas around you. They are half dead, hunger and sadness.
must work twice as hard for half as much. Their sons are taken away from them, and their children die. Their will to live is very weak. Only men like us are not broken yet, but we must appear beaten too, so as not to stand out from the others.
Remember the agent's first commandment, Charles. Don't be conspicuous. Good cover doesn't come automatically with the right clothes. You must put on a new attitude, a new disposition, to fit those foul-smelling baggy pants and the old boots. The best cover story in the world won't protect you if you cannot live that cover.
I think I can look sad and beaten up. Hey.
Now that Al has stayed with his friend in enemy town long enough to build up his recent past, he's ready to establish himself in the capital of the enemy area.
Jesus. Enemy town. Friendlyville. Creepy.
Provisional quarters. What did they tell me about this back at the schools?
Creepy.
Provisional quarters.
Don't whisper to yourself. It's kind of fucking weird. Really fucking weird.
A big hotel. How about that? Lots of people. Easy to lose myself in there. Full of loose talk. Might get a chance to pick up a little info.
But remember what we told you, Al. That's why informers like them, too. That's why the desk clerks, the maids, the waiters, and the bellboys are all on the payroll of the secret police. And how about conformity to cover? What's a mechanic doing at the best hotel?
A paying guest with a family. That's a possibility. The sort of thing a fellow like me might look for after being laid up. And if the family turned out to be sympathetic.
Boarding with a family is a good idea, if you know the family. If they're overly suspicious, it's too easy for them to keep tabs on you. And if they're overly friendly,
oh my God, are we doing Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear?
No.
On a spy
keep on going
propaganda film?
But keep it in mind when you're ready for permanent quarters.
Lodging out. That's the sort of place a mechanic might go. And there's too many of them in town for the cops to check them all.
I'm running a respectable house. Bringing that house right upstairs.
Forget that talkative landlady, Al. She'll be watching you like a hawk. No matter how discreet you are, she'll find something to talk about.
Oh my goodness. This is literally Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Now here's an idea. A streetwalker's apartment. The most natural thing in the world. No register, no questions asked. Why, it's just what I need to get me over there on my first night in a strange city.
Sorry to spoil your fun, Al. But remember, every prostitute's an informer. Or a potential informer. And that's a good reason for staying out of...
Every prostitute is an informer or a potential informer.
Constantly being interrupted by snap control.
She did not look like a prostitute. Damn, is that what the prostitutes look like in the 30s?
Something to tide me over. A migratory clientele. Sailors coming and going at all hours. Would give me lots of freedom of movement.
Claire's instead of
but
sailors.
The merchant marines are breeding ground of political resistance, attracting agent provocateurs and snap controls. And again, conformity to cover. Would a respectable craftsman pick a dive like this?
Good God, is he gonna go through fucking every single place in town?
A medium-sized hotel. Not important enough to be headquarters for secret police. Not so small that I'll be watched too closely. And just about the right size for my economic status. This may do the trick.
You can't find perfect security anywhere in town now. But this is probably your safest bet for the first few days. So you might as well go in and get some shut-eye. Meanwhile, we'll take a swing over to the coast and see how old friend Charles is getting along. Charles was supposed to spend 2 or 3 weeks in the fishing village where he landed, building up his recent past, before working his way up the coast toward El Porto. But 2 or 3 weeks to the average agent is just 2 or 3 days to Charles. After all, he's a fast worker.
How about letting me walk you home after work?
Some other time, maybe. When my boyfriend gets shipped out again. He's over there now. In the corner. He gets sort of jealous sometimes.
Submarine, eh?
Well, what does he look like?
This is kind of a hangout for them, isn't it?
You better drink your beer.
All right, all right. Any idea how soon you'll be shipping out again?
Say, for a fisherman, you ask an awful lot of questions.
Tell the truth now. You wouldn't like me to sit around here like a clam.
No, I guess not. I get kind of tired looking at these fishermen hanging around here like a lot of sour apples. But you're
Sitting inside? I mean,
I can get back.
You can say I'm inside if you like, but I live in an RV, so yeah, it's kind of cold out here. I mean, we're at 52 degrees tonight. 52 degrees outside. The RV has no heat, so I'm maybe at like 55, 56 in here. It is definitely a little chilly. Welcome in again. Thanks for coming back on by. Yeah, it's a little chilly in here.
To my sailor now. He's got his eye on me.
That's all right. You keep the change.
Say, what do you catch out there? Goldfish? Here you are, Rudy. Another beer. No, it's all right. It's paid for. Out of that tip that fisherman left me.
Tip, eh? What's a fisherman doing throwing his money around? Probably another one of those black market bugs.
Oh, I don't know. He seemed honest enough. He really is an interesting fellow.
Interesting? You must have drunk too much of your own beer. Why, all these stupid fishermen are the same.
Not this one. He seems a lot smarter than the others.
Well, we better not get smart with you.
Yeah, that's about what it did here today. Mid to high 60s. I think it hit 67, 68 here. And then it's going to drop down to 50, 49. 67 at midnight in North Carolina. In Florida today, I think it was fucking stupid hot. So, you know, I go one place, it's so hot, it's not even... My one home is so hot I can't even live there. My other home can't seem to fucking warm up.
Boy meets girl. If this were a Hollywood movie, that would be the beginning. But here in enemy area, it's much more likely to be the end.
What's the matter, Al? Have a bad night? Getting jittery?
Which you don't really notice 48 if you know, live in a house. And you wake up and it's, 60-something in the morning. But when you live outside in an RV, 48 means 2 blankets at night. Oh, shit. Yeah. 48 is cold.
Don't let it get you down. Sooner or later, it happens to the best of them. You can handle it. Why don't you start doing something about it? Nobody around here stays in his room all day unless he's sick or scared.
Yeah, I didn't. When I lived in the Bay, I lived in the North Bay up in Santa Rosa, but when I lived in the Bay, we never used our heat. Rarely used our AC. We pretty much try to let the house be at natural temperature. Don't need it that bad in the Bay. Oh, now I live in the other Bay, Tampa Bay. Holy fuck. In Tampa Bay, you go straight from AC to heat to, like, you always have your AC on pretty much.
Looks okay. Guess I'll go out and have a look around.
Go ahead, answer it. It's probably nothing but the maid. Keep her waiting, and you start talk.
Come in.
Good morning, sir. May I clean your room now?
Oh, why, sure. I was just getting ready to go out.
Yeah, Tampa's hot as balls right now.
Well, it was a little better last night, wasn't it, sir? But I hear they knocked out a ball bearing factory on the outskirts.
Well, that's a shame.
Yes, the way things are going, they'll need every man in the country now. Do you work here in town, sir?
Well, I got a job at the Falcon plant.
The Falcon plant? Oh, that's where my cousin works. What department are you in?
Yeah, it's fucking...
I mean, I've got an appointment for a job at the Falcon plant.
Well, good for you. I hear they're taking on a lot of men these days.
See, it's quite a bus ride out there. Better be going.
Well, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Stupid hot in the summer. I like Florida December through March. I love Florida December through March. And that is it.
Wonder if they see anything strange about me.
Yeah, I like living in the Bay. I like Bend, Oregon.
My God, I think he's going to stop me.
I like the Northwest. You guys have good weather.
Get jittery, Al. Remember what we told you. If something frightens you, don't run away from it. Turn and meet it. Easy does it now.
Pardon me, officer. Do you have the right time?
10:35.
Thank you very much.
Now, what's so hard about that? My first morning in town and a copy's out of my hand. Why, I'll be operating before I know it.
Don't you know you shouldn't throw things in the street?
I'm sorry, sir. I guess I forgot.
Forgot? With signs all over town warning you against it? Let me see your identification card. Pick it up. In future, observe the regulations.
Yes, sir.
Operating before you know it. Blowing before you know what you mean. That's right, Al. An overconfident agent doesn't have to look for trouble. He'll find it just as surely as Student Charles.
Yeah, 4 degrees at night in June, bro. Not 4 degrees like all the time.
All set to make sensational disclosures. The goddamned idiot, what the hell's he trying to do? Show off?
El Porter's a pretty vital spot. He ought to have his brains examined.
If he has any left after the enemy secret police get through with him.
He's just trying to fit in as a fucking fisherman, right? Like, he's not trying to fit in with the Navy SEALs. He's just trying to be a general-ass fisherman.
Who's there? Give the password. Who's there?
Who's there? Get a password?
Huh!
Who's there? Get a password.
Huh!
And that's what the fucking... That's funny.
Let's see. Weren't you the fellow who didn't have to study up because he knew this spot by heart? Look at you, soaking wet, out of breath, in danger of your life. If you were a good agent, instead of just a daring one, you'd be home in bed like any other respectable member of enemy area society.
Well, your papers seem to be in order.
Like any other respectable member of enemy area society, Al gets a war production job.
Report to the East Gate on the night shift.
Thank you, sir.
Moves in with a private family. Makes friends with his fellow workers. Attends the government labor rallies. Listens faithfully to all official broadcasts. Receives praise from the foreman as a conscientious workman. Takes a stroll through the park on his way to his job on the night shift. Like any other respectable member of enemy area society.
Like, seriously, are they saying that Canada's an enemy? They keep using Canada as a random occurrence. Was Canada ever considered our enemy in the 30s?
Mind if I look at your paper?
Help yourself.
Thanks. Say, I see we shot down 12 more of their farmers last night.
Yeah, the situation seems to be improving.
12 more of their
The past few
farmers.
weeks have been pretty tough.
Instead of bombers.
Want to take a look at the score page?
Thanks. Say, the champion's going to try to make a comeback after all. I thought he was all finished after they shot him down on the eastern front.
Just a couple of enemy area citizens having a harmless conversation on a park bench. At least that's the way it looks to passersby. But this casual conversation covers the first meeting between our agent and the cutout, who will carry his first message to the WT man to be radioed from enemy area. Well, that's it. It may not make...
Holy fuck, they're gonna end the movie with a fucking ending of a movie. These motherfuckers and their stupid fucking propaganda. They're gonna end the movie with a fucking ending of a movie. God damn it. These sons of bitches. Seriously? The end? Yep, see? They're ending the movie with the ending of a fucking movie. Fuck these people. Jesus, come on. Come up with something more interesting. A couple of short Periscope movies. Did we watch this? I know I watched some of it.
And began talking to people about it and basically got it confirmed that it was a C-130s flew in there with arms and drugs. And Brennicky had told me that when he flew in there, that he asked the out of Jefferson, became Continental Savings, and that purchase was financed.
I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to go off mic.
The Reagan-Bush administration and Congress decided that they were going to deregulate, quote unquote, savings and loans, and this allowed S&Ls to basically invest their money and lend their money on anything they wanted to, and was an open invitation to the criminal element. And sure enough, the Mafia was one of the first groups involved in looting S&Ls in the early 80s. And the deregulation that Bush was in charge of did that. So we, in a sense, were financing these covert illegal operations. And it's the way that, of course, Oliver North and William Casey, it's the way that George Bush, the way they like to do things. Now, in Texas, we found a Louisiana mobster named Herman K. Beebe, who was controlling S&Ls in a different way than Renda. And we found Beebe and Renda together in many, many different places across the country, and many connections between the two. This S&L that Benson bought after he got out of Jefferson became Continental Savings, and that purchase was financed by Herman K. Beebe. So it's possible that...
All right, well, that looks super detailed and informational, but it's supposed to be a chiller night. So I wanted to do only black and white. I can't believe I fucking forgot that after an hour and a half of streaming. Like, oh yeah.
A huge portion of what I do here on YouTube.
Super informative. And maybe we should be saving that for another night. I want to stick with black and white propaganda night. So the Teens, 1957 teenager and early adult behavioral social guidance film. Social guidance film. There's some trigger words for you. Social guidance film. The Mental Health Division, Department of National Health and Welfare, Ottawa. So this is a Canadian film, eh? Oh, that's just fantastic, yeah? It's a Canadian film, eh? Coming from the Mental Health Division of Canada, eh? But yeah, we'll absolutely do that other one next night or two. I will get that set up in the lineup more properly than a black and white night, because I like keeping it black and white, old school when we're going to do it, right? Let's do it right when we do it.
This is the home of the O'Connors, mother, father, and 3 teenagers. Here comes young Tim now with a pal of his. Tim is 13, older than he was last year. He seems vague, but is very busy thinking just the same. As usual, he's hungry.
Tim always seems to be eating, probably because he's growing so fast. That shirt fitted him perfectly 3 months ago. He's at that stage when they suddenly shoot up, just about puberty. Mrs. O'Connor doing some hospital work this afternoon. With her family growing up, she has most afternoons to herself. Her family is interesting during these in-between years when the children are finding themselves and becoming people in their own right. That pie was for supper. Tim was just making it easier to cut into 5 pieces. His good humor is infectious, but he simply must learn to respect other people's plans. It's fun to have them grow up and become independent, but after all, you can't just stop being a mother all of a sudden. Joan is 15, very mature and conscientious about her schoolwork. Sometimes her mother wonders if she really needs all those books she carries. Success with the boys. Joan is cheerful and outgoing, adequately good-looking, and easily mannered. She's been going steady with a classmate whose name bracelet she wears, and this places her in an enviable position among her feminine classmates. Joan doesn't admit to outsiders that she really isn't crazy about Peter, but you have to have dates if you want to be anybody, and she feels that the only way to be sure of having dates is to go steady. But tonight is different. She's going to risk losing her steady by going out with Jim Bronson. He's 18 and a football star. He drives his father's car, and they're going on a double date to the Rosedale to hear a jazz group. Jim plays the trombone, too. He's smooth. She must tell Marge the news. Line's busy. Maybe she'll have time to give a little assistance now. Well, if she can't tell Marge, she'll have to tell Belinda. Bill O'Connor is fond of his family, but not so inclined to worry about them as their mother is. Keen follower of the sports news. Barry, Joan's twin, and a chip off the old block. Schoolwork seems to be the least of his worries. He's a skier of some note. He is well coordinated, sure of himself, and equally sure that his parents are old-fashioned. He intends to buy a pair of handmade Austrian ski boots. These don't give him the control he wants. Father can't see anything wrong with these boots, practically brand new. It's nonsense about the boots making such a difference. Just a racket, a waste of money. Not asking Dad to buy them. Not an Olympic contender, just trying out for the school ski team. Dad just can't get used to seeing Barry as an independent near adult. At this point, Barry is only arguing for the sake of argument. Used to do all right with a pair of $12 boots. 20 years ago has nothing to do with it. Skiing today is totally different. 15 wants independence even more than he wants the security of knowing that his parents think he is right. Dad doesn't realize that his insistence on not buying the boots will only heighten Barry's determination to buy them. Barry is so much like Bill. Funny they don't understand each other better. Bill should try to realize that even though they are alike, Barry has to be himself. Tim is keen on chemistry just now, not so keen on being with a gang all the time. He has always been interested in science, but now, under the influence of a young and enthusiastic teacher, Tim is going all out. Mr. Albright is his ideal just now. His remarks are quoted by Tim with a regularity that is almost annoying. Must go to the next parents' night at the school and tell Mr. Albright how much he has done for Tim. Maybe ask him to supper. Used to worry Mary a little because Tim and his father hadn't any common interests. A boy at this age needs someone older to admire. After all, why should both their boys be just like Bill? Funny how mothers sometimes seem to understand boys better than fathers do. Mary thought she knew all about baking soda, but Tim has a new angle. The subject of the boots is not forgotten, but is carefully avoided by both parties. Tim's joke has relaxed the tension, and everyone is glad. World outside. The teenagers have opinions on almost every subject, and if they haven't an opinion, they're quick to form one. Father and mother help them to be realistic, to consider different points of view, and to develop sound judgment. Joan is keenly aware of social problems and earnestly wishes for better understanding between the peoples of the world and between the different classes in her own city. What a pity that this idealism of 15 can't be retained. One wonders sometimes if they wouldn't do a better job of running things than their elders are doing. Barry's humor isn't always kind, but tonight Joan is riding so high even Barry's teasing doesn't make her mad. Barry's expecting an important call. Who cares whether Gail is wearing a sweater and skirt or a dress? Tim is so agreeable, so vague and dreamy, with his life as yet uncomplicated by social activities. Who's going to help with the dishes? Joan just hasn't time. She has to do her hair and press her dress and have a bath. After all, she has a very important date. Tim did it last night. It's Joan's turn. Who says her date is so important? Everybody has other things to do every night. Wasn't there a definite agreement that the three of them were to take turns? It's Joan's turn, and that's that. The normal teenager is so very occupied with his own busy life that he is self-centered. Almost has to be if he's going to keep up with all the learning he has to do about people and things. The dishes aren't Tim's problem. It's Joan's turn. Okay, but why does Father have to pick tonight to be so mean? Mother really wouldn't mind doing it tonight, but better not confuse the situation now by saying so. Bless Tim. You can't count on it, but he does come through admirably sometimes. To keep this family of strong-minded individuals running smoothly, there have to be rules. But a rule is only a good rule if it can be broken when the circumstances demand it. Tim's generous gesture was possible because he has found that doing the dishes really isn't so bad. It's a chance for a busy parent and a busy boy to cooperate on a job and exchange ideas on a basis of equality. And right now, this is important to Tim. Doorbell and phone are not long quiet in a family of teenagers. The basement wasn't big enough for a real recreation room, but by careful planning, a space was found for the teenagers to entertain their friends in privacy. At this age, the group and its ideas are so important that they must get together often. Home is more comfortable than some soda bar. Putting the record player in the basement was Mrs. O'Connor's idea. Tim has a table in his own room, but when the kitchen is empty, it makes a good laugh. It isn't that Tim does people, but he's so busy in his relationship with other people that he likes to be alone. He has one intimate friend, though, who shares his interest in chemistry. David is a year and a half older than Tim, but he has been slower in developing than some of his 14-year-old friends. He is not as well coordinated and as good at sports as many, and is not at all interested in girls. Happily, he has found that Tim, although younger, is at about the same stage. Of course, neither of them are conscious of this. Hobbies in the early teens tend to settle into permanent interests. Who knows, David and Tim might become scientists. Tim's parents show an interest, but they don't hover. Tim's own interest keeps him going. What teenagers need is scope and freedom. With them, almost everything is an experiment. This experiment may go the way it was supposed to go, or by accident it may turn out quite differently. But whichever way it goes, there is learning in it. It's incredible how many times they can listen to the same record and still enjoy it. Even at 15, they can swing from being very adult to being what might be considered childish.
This is my comeback. Start yours at purdueglobal.edu.
These are Pet Labco's probiotics, and they can help your dog sudden itching in just 30 seconds with 3 billion.
A place where you belong, where you are accepted at your own level, is very important. Only in that way can you find out what your own level really is. They can talk for hours. Sports, cars, people, sports, news, girls, sports. At this stage, their interest in life is quite different from earlier, when the facts of conception and childbirth were learned. Petting, girls, sex, these are matters in which their interest is more than passing. Barry's good relationship with his father and the way in which his knowledge of sex has been kept up to the level of his interest in the subject pays off. His attitude is healthy, unworried, and confident. Of course, he's not above an off-color joke, but it's got to be a funny one. This is the big moment. Jim, by now, takes parents in his stride. He is sure of himself. He's 18. He's been taking out girls for years. Joan is not quite so sure of herself. Thank goodness Father takes it all calmly. If only Mother wouldn't flutter so much. Oh, well, Jim doesn't seem to notice it. Mother is a bit concerned tonight. She has heard that she's quite a reputation, and she's afraid Joan is getting out of her depth. Father takes a dim view of this running around in cars. She's just a child, after all. Sure, they're young, but they all go out in cars. It's just different from the generation before. Maybe not so different at that. She did seem to be settling down to go steady with Peter Eardley. She's much too young for that, too. It's ridiculous, going steady at 15. But what can parents do about it? Perhaps they should try to give Joan more guidance. It's hard to know how much to interfere. Somehow, Mary trusts Joan's judgment. After all, since she was a little girl, they have tried to help her develop a sense of values.
Who the fuck is this for? Seriously, who the fuck is this for? Who's the target audience for this? The teens. I mean, I'm guessing parents, but this is fucking stupid. I mean, it's funny. Come on now, it's fucking hilarious. But this is fucking stupid.
Now she's ready for one more step toward responsibility. Dates with different boys will help her set standards based on her own experience rather than on the experiences of her parents. Joan's glamorous evening has been fun. Dancing to the name band was exciting. The boys had a couple of beers during the evening. Joan drank ginger ale, but she felt a little self-conscious about it. She wishes she were more sophisticated. Jim is really so hand-moved. She wonders what he thinks of her. If she could get him for a steady, would she really want him? At 15, if you're a sophisticated 15, you're beginning to wonder about love. But love tends to be confused with excitement. When you're just a bit older, you realize that love will come later, and that you can have a good time without falling in love. Learning how to get along with the opposite sex comes at different ages.
Wait, are they saying that you can have a one-night stand and a fling and that's okay? You don't have to fall in love? Damn, they're ahead of their times. Propaganda's ahead of their times, yo. Get sexually active out there. You don't have to fall in love.
Thank goodness, she's home at last. Is Mother awake? She had a good time. The band was wonderful. Jim? Okay. Night, Mom. Maybe she'll tell her mother more about the evening, and maybe she won't. But anyway, Mrs. O'Connor is sure now it was right for her to go out with Jim. She had to find out for herself whether this was her kind of date. Saturday morning at the O'Connors finds everybody hurrying to get through a few chores in order to get on with the activities of the day. Barry does the errand he is asked to do, but he doesn't loiter around looking for ways to be helpful. He's off downtown with the gang. He'll be back for lunch. Hasn't tidied his room. Well, he's the one who has to live in the mess. Mother will close the door and leave it. When it gets bad enough, he'll clean it up, with a little urging, of course, sometime when he has less important business to attend to. Joan is going out to collect ads for the school magazine. She has seen scarves worn this way in a teenage fashion magazine, and it looks smart. But the gang haven't started to wear them that way yet. She'll wait till they do. If Peter Eardley, Joan's steady, calls, Mother is to be sure to tell him that Joan will be back for lunch. So she's still interested in her less glamorous steady. The O'Connors don't insist on a lot of chores on Saturdays. This free time is so precious to the teenagers. But jobs like house cleaning and simple repairs can be a joint parent-teenager operation and give a sense of teamwork and accomplishment. Joan and her gang are busy comparing notes about their job for the magazine. In fact, they seem to spend most of their time comparing notes about everything. Dates, clothes, school activities, boys, other girls, necking, drinking, parents. Gossip is more than just gossip at this age. It's a way of learning what other people think about what other people do. It's a way of learning what you should do yourself. When you're not sure of yourself, it becomes doubly important to be accepted by the gang, to be like them, one of them. And to be really accepted, you must be able to make the grade with the boys. Joan is one of the lucky ones. Susie would rather have a boyfriend than anything else, not because she is so fond of boys, but because of the standing it would give her in the group. Now that the workshop is fixed up for the kids to have their friends in, it looks like the tools will have to be moved to the living room. Of course, they had intended all along to tidy it up this morning. Bill enjoys his occasional chats with Barry's friends. They really are quite a gang. Nothing like sports to bring out the best in a boy. Chatting about the relative importance of equipment, training, and natural ability in sports, Bill is surprised at the thought the boys have given to these matters and how serious they are about their skiing. So Barry decided not to get the new boots. There wouldn't have been time to break them in. You couldn't expect him to admit that he had taken his father's advice. Saturday lunch at the O'Connors is no longer a meal when the whole family sits down together. Barry has to get his early to dash off for the tryouts for the ski team.
Their premium version really takes things to the next level with in-depth feedback on things like vocabulary, conciseness.
Tim is off to the movies with David. Joan, who just got home, is eating a quick snack before going to watch the ski trials with her own crowd. This is more Joan's kind of date, a transition from the gang to the single emotional attachment. Here, they are themselves, independent, still striving, enjoying, daring, competing, and even if they lose, they gain in their advance toward maturity. Saturday evening, the usual few ex-teenagers are watching TV at the O'Connors. The guests, of course, are the ones who think of making room for mother and father. There is comfort in the thought that Barry would be polite at someone else's house. Another day has passed, a day of ups and downs, as are most days in a teenager's life. A day and learning as they live. They are finding themselves. To do this, they need freedom to be themselves. And yet, they still need guidance to help them become the kind of people they want to be. They need to think for themselves, and yet they need to understand and sense the feelings of others. They are children no longer, and yet they are not.
What's that you're reading?
Karl Marx?
Surely you're not a communist.
Do I have to be a communist to read Karl Marx?
Rupert. That's a valid answer. Well, if you're not a communist, what are you?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I dislike all forms of government.
But somebody must rule.
And I don't like the word rule.
Well, if we don't like the word rule, let's call it leadership.
Leadership in government is political power, and political power is an official form of antagonizing the people.
What magazine did you say he edits? A on current events. Pardon me, Lester. But My dear young man, politics are necessary.
Politics are rules imposed upon the people.
In this country, rules are not imposed. They are the wish of all free citizens.
Travel around a bit, then you'll see how free they are.
Yes, but you didn't let me finish.
They have every man in a straitjacket, and without a passport, he can't move a toe.
But if you'll allow me to
In a free world, they violate the natural rights of every citizen.
But you don't let me fully...
They have become the weapons of political despots.
Yes, but may
And
I...
if you don't think as they think, you're deprived of your passport.
Will you allow me
to leave a country is like breaking out of jail.
Yes,
and to enter a country is like going through the eye of a needle.
But
Am I free to travel?
Of course you're free to travel.
Only with a passport.
Will you allow me to say something?
Only with a passport. Do animals need passports?
Have you finished?
It's in Congress that in this atomic age of speed, we are shut in and shut out by passports.
If you'll shut up and let somebody else talk...
And free speech, does that exist?
No, you've got it all.
And free enterprise.
We were talking of passports.
Today it's all monopoly.
All right. Now will you...
Can I go into the automobile business and compete with the auto trust?
If I can get in a word...
Not a chance. Can I go into the grocery business and compete with the chain stores?
Will you shut up?
Not a chance. Monopoly is the menace of free enterprise.
Good morning, aviators.
When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist, or Nazi, or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names